4 weeks left of the fantasy football season. If you're fortunate enough to make the playoffs, that's a good thing. But here we go. Rest of the season running back rankings. 1 to 30 here. So Derrick Henry, he's the first running back I got ranked for the rest of the season. He's got a pretty good schedule. He's got Cleveland, Jacksonville in Week 14, Week 15 Detroit, and then Green Bay in Week 16. So right here, Derrick Henry, we saw him explode versus the Indianapolis Colts with 175 yards and 3 touchdowns in that ball game yesterday. And Henry, this time of the year, is when he gets stronger and he gets better. And now he's got 4 great matchups, like I said, the rest of the season. And I'm going to see Henry feasting, and I could see him rush for his annual 200-yard game towards the end of the season. Like I said, Henry, he gets stronger as the year goes. Defenses, they're more tired as the season goes. And this guy, he knows how to wear a defense out. And when you got a guy this size with that speed coming at you 25, 30 times a game, he's going to tire you out and start to break off big runs and find the end zone. So Henry, I got number 1 the rest of the season. Number 2 is Dalvin Cook of the Minnesota Vikings. The last few weeks, the numbers went down for Cook. Then he had a bad injury, it looked like, but he came back into the game. Thankfully, was Cook in Week 12, and now he's got Jacksonville in Week 13. Then he goes to Tampa in Week 14, Chicago in Week 15, and then New Orleans in Week 16. Cook, he's got mediocre matchups and a couple tough ones in there for the last 4 weeks, but this guy, he's a top 3 to 5 talent at this running back position. And Cook, I think he's going to bounce back now after 2 mediocre ball games out of his last 3, and he's going to rumble and he's going to explode. And Cook and this Minnesota team, they're in the playoff hunt. So I see for Cook to have bigger ball games as it goes on. Number 3, Nick Chubb. He missed 5 weeks with injury, but it didn't slow him down. Chubb now with 2 back-to-back 100-yard ball games and touchdowns in his few weeks back. And now he's got Tennessee in Week 13, Week 14 Baltimore. And if you can make it to the Final 4, he's got the Giants in Week 15 and the Jets in Week 16. So a very sweet matchup card for Nick Chubb. Chubb, he's one of the best running backs in football. He reminds me of a throwback. He wears no gloves, shoulder pads, or wrist tape like a Jamal Lewis. And this guy, he's running like a Jamal Lewis right now. He's running defenses over. He's got that burst and breakaway speed, and he's the number 1 option in that Browns offense. So Nick Chubb, he's going to have a big rest of the way if he stays healthy here for the Cleveland Browns. Number 4, rest of the season, Alvin Kamara of the New Orleans Saints. Kamara, the last few weeks, his numbers have been going down a lot. I think it has to do with the foot injury and Taysom Hill in there, and he's running the ball a lot, and a lot of Latavius Murray we've seen over the last 2 weeks. But anyway, Kamara's got Atlanta in Week 13, at Philly in Week 14, Kansas City in Week 15, and Week 16, Minnesota. These 4 ball games are all good matchups, in my opinion, for Kamara. And 3 of these games are going to be indoors for him. So that's a good thing as well, not worrying about the weather or whatever the deal is. Drew Brees should be back in Week 15 to open the offense up more when you need Kamara the most if you make it to the Final 4 or the championship. So Kamara, I know he struggled, like I said, the last few weeks, but this is a guy, I can't keep him out of the top 10 in the rest of the season rankings, or the top 5, that is, for a matter of fact. So I got Kamara at number 4. Number 5, Aaron Jones of the Green Bay Packers. Jones, he hasn't had that huge of a ball game of late, but he's back. He looks 100%, and I like the schedule a lot for him. And he's got 3 home games out of the last 4. He's got Philly in Week 13. That should be an easy one. Week 14 at Detroit. Carolina Week 15. And then Tennessee Week 16 for Aaron Jones. This Packer offense, they're rolling. Jones, it was good to see him get some rest in the second half of that ball game, because the Packers, they were just pouncing away on the Chicago Bears in that one. And Jones, he's got a good outlook the rest of the way, and if he stays healthy, he could definitely put up top 5 running back numbers. So I got him at 5. Number 6, the surprises of the seasons, James Robinson of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Each and every week, it's either 15 to 30 fantasy points for Robinson, and we saw it once again yesterday with a huge ball game was Robinson with 20 5 fantasy points in a good one versus a Cleveland Brown defense that's pretty solid. Now Robinson coming up. He's got Minnesota in Week 13, Week 14 Tennessee, Week 15 at Baltimore, and Week 16 Chicago. So he's got a pretty decent schedule. The only tough matchup really in there is Baltimore, but Robinson, they rely on him a lot. He's had 3 different quarterbacks this season, and it still don't matter. He's producing with each of these guys. And right now, Robinson, he's putting up, like I said, he's up there in fantasy points. I got him just out of the top 5 here at number 6. He's a good receiver out of the backfield. And Jacksonville, they rely on this rookie a lot. So right here, he's number 6. Number 7's Christian McCaffrey of the Carolina Panthers. He's been hurt just about the whole season. He's only played in 3 or 4 ball games. He's on bye week in Week 13. So McCaffrey, he should be back in Week 14 after the bye. And he's got good matchups. He's got Denver in Week 14. Then he goes to Green Bay. That gives up the most fantasy points to running backs in Week 15. And then Washington in Washington in Week 16. So Christian McCaffrey, you know he's a dual threat. You know he's a huge part of the offense. He gets like 50-60% of the touches when he's in there. Just been a lost season for him. But if he could come back strong for you owners that got McCaffrey and you're in the playoffs, this guy, he could lead you to the championship when it's all said and done if he stays healthy. And with those matchups and with his usage and his rate, he's a guy I got to keep in the top 10 here. So I got him at 7. Number 8, Antonio Gibson of the Washington football team. This guy, what a rookie year it's been for Gibson. And now in his last 4 weeks, he's got double-digit fantasy points in each of his ball games. And this guy, he's having a great year. We saw him explode last week versus Dallas with 3 touchdowns and over 100 yards in that ball game. And now he's got Pittsburgh in Week 13, which is a tough matchup. Then he's got San Francisco in Frisco, Week 14, Seattle in Week 15, and then he's got the Carolina Panthers in Week 16. But right now, Alex Smith and this Washington team, they're relying heavy on Gibson. The only thing with Gibson, I hope to see him get more catches out of the backfield. But they got J.D. McKissick over there to do that for this Washington football team. But Gibson here, with his volume and workload, I know he's got a couple tough matchups in these last 4 weeks, but he's a guy I'm going to rely on. And I think he could get you some good fantasy points and still keep going. So I got him in number 8. Number 9's Austin Ekeler, the Los Angeles Chargers. The problem with him's health. Besides that, this guy, he's a receiving machine. And we saw it yesterday versus Buffalo. 11 catches out of the backfield. Him and Herbert, they were hooking up on a lot of screens. And they even lined Ekeler up as a dual threat, as a wide receiver as well. And Ekeler, he's got a pretty good schedule coming up, and 3 out of his last 4 ball games are at home. He's got New England in Week 13, Atlanta in Week 14, then they go to Vegas in Week 15, and Denver. So if Ekeler can stay healthy, this guy's sky the limit for him with that schedule and with his pass-catching abilities out of the backfield for this Charger team. You know, the Chargers, they'll be trailing in a lot of games, so the catches are going to be there, and it's just the health that I'm worried about for Ekeler. So I got him number 9. Number 10, Miles Sanders of the Philadelphia Eagles. We saw Sanders the last few weeks now get vultured a little at the goal line from Boston Scott and Corey Clement. But Sanders, he's got a very good schedule the next 4 weeks and the rest of the season for fantasy football. In Week 13, he's got Green Bay in Green Bay. Week 14, New Orleans. Week 15 at Arizona, and Week 16 at Dallas. These are 3 out of 4 road games. So they're going to rely heavy on Miles Sanders, I believe. And Carson Wentz, he just hasn't gotten it going. It won't surprise me to see Jalen Hurts come in there as the starting quarterback in versus Seattle on Monday night, or even in Week 13 versus Green Bay. Because this team, they're not moving the ball a lot. And Sanders, he's got to catch the ball more out of the backfield. But with this schedule and his volume still of getting 15 to 20 carries, I got to keep him here in the top 10. Number 11, James Conner of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Conner, he's got the COVID, so he was out in Week 12. But now Week 13, he should be back as Conner. He's got Washington at Buffalo in Week 14, at Cincinnati in Week 15, and Indianapolis in Week 16. I know the workload has gone down over the last 3 or 4 weeks for Conner, but this Pittsburgh team, they pretty much got everything wrapped up, I would say, even though the Chiefs are on their heels of getting that first seed bye. But anyway, they're still going to play until they clinch that bye. Connor, I hope he gets more work, but he's another guy. He's in a top offense with top players, and he's a guy I can't shy away from. So I got him here, I think, pretty conservatively at the number 11 spot, because like I said, he's got great schedule. 3 out of those 4 matchups, not tough at all for running backs. So Connor, I got number 11. Number 12 is Josh Jacobs. We're going to see the status on that ankle. Hopefully it's not bad for him, but if he could go the rest of the way, he's got a good schedule, and I got him here at 12. He's got the Jets in Week 13 in New York, Week 14 Indianapolis, Week 15 the Chargers, and then he's got Miami in Week 16 is Josh Jacobs. So Jacobs, he's an up-and-down running back, but like I said, workload is key, and this guy, he's been getting anywhere from 20 to 30 touches a game. I know he don't do much out of the backfield catching the football, but this guy, he gets the goal line touches, the tough in-between work, and Vegas, they rely a lot on him in Josh Jacobs, so I got him in number 12 rest of the way. Number 13, Chris Carson. We'll see how he reacts to that injury that's plagued him with a mid-foot sprain for a long time now, but he finally comes back on Monday Night Football, is Carson, but he's got a great schedule if he stays healthy. He's got the Giants at home here in Week 13. Week 14, the Jets come to town as well. Week 15, he goes to Washington. And Week 16, the Rams. So 3 out of those 4 matchups are great matchups for Carson. Carson, I know Seattle, they've missed him a lot now in that offense. We're passing the ball and having trouble just having a steady run game. They finally had one in Week 11 with Carlos Hyde having a big game for them to overcome Arizona and win that game. But Carson, he's a 3-down back. He's a dual threat. His receiving has gotten better as the season went on, but I hope he's healthy and I hope he's ready to go, because this guy, he can help you the last 4 weeks of the season. And that playoff schedule, like I said, from 14 to 16 is very favorable. So I got Carson at 13. Number 14 is Ezekiel Elliott, another guy with a little bit of an injury concern. We saw him limp off the field in that Thanksgiving ball game versus the Washington football team, but he came back later, but that hamstring looked like it tightened up on him. Zeke couldn't get many running lanes. His offensive line now is banged up as well for Dallas, but this guy, he's still going to get anywhere from 15 to 20 touches. They're going to rely on him. I know the whole offensive line is out, but this guy, I think I got him at a conservative number as well, at number 14, just based on volume and stuff. And this guy, he still has top 5 talent, I believe, at the position. It's just been a down year and a lost season for Zeke and the Cowboys. But anyway, Week 13 at Baltimore, 14 at Cincinnati, Week 15 San Francisco and Philly. So he's got a pretty decent schedule, and maybe he could get something cooking if he stays healthy. Number 15, DAndre Swift of the Detroit Lions. This guy, he's had a concussion, and he's been out now for 2 weeks with the injury. It was great to see him get the starter's role a few weeks back versus Washington in Week 10, where he exploded for 26 fantasy points with 130 total yards from scrimmage with 2 touchdowns. And Swift, this rookie, I was high on him most of the season, but now with the injury, hopefully it don't set him back anymore. And if he does come back here in Week 13, he's got Chicago in Chicago. That's a pretty tough matchup. Then Green Bay at home in Detroit. They give up the most fantasy points to running backs. Then in Tennessee in Week 15 and Tampa. So that's a pretty solid schedule for DAndre Swift. But health is key for him, and hopefully he comes back. Number 16, Todd Gurley, another guy, the knee. We know he's got that bad knee, and we'll see if he could come back and play these ball games. So Gurley coming up, he's got New Orleans in Week 13. Then he goes to the Chargers at Week 14, Tampa Bay, and then at Kansas City in Week 16. So Gurley here, pretty favorable lineup. He's a guy, he gets a lot of carries. He's got 9 touchdowns on the season. He's getting all the goal line work. And Edo Smith and Brian Hill, they look decent in his absence. But Gurley, if he's healthy, he's going to play, and hopefully he's healthy. So I got him at number 16. Number 17, Clyde EdwardsHelaire of the Kansas City Chiefs. Helaire, I just don't know what's been going on with him, but this guy, it only seems like he gets anywhere from 8 to 11 total touches a game. And Le'Veon Bell, he's not even eating into Helaire's workload, so it's been been weird to me why, but this team, their pass-first team, they made a statement in yesterday's ball game versus Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Just going up and down the field was Mahomes and that Chief offense, and I think that's the message they want to send here. And Clyde EdwardsHelaire, hopefully he gets more touches and more pass catches out of the backfield, because his matchups aren't bad. Week 13, Denver, Miami in Miami, Week 14, at New Orleans, Week 15, and then he's got Atlanta at home in Week 16. So EdwardsHelaire, this guy, we thought he was going to be a monster this year. He was a first-round pick, probably going anywhere from 7 to 10 in your fantasy leagues. And right here, he just hasn't lived up to the bill this season in fantasy football. But still, with his workload and the offense he's in, I got him in number 17. Number 18, J.K. Dobbins of the Baltimore Ravens. Dobbins here, he was on the COVID list, and he missed Week 12's ball game versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. But this guy, he better get the keys to the car now into that backfield for this Baltimore Raven team. He's got Dallas in Week 13, where he could have a 30-plus fantasy point day. Week 14 at Cleveland, Week 15 Jacksonville, and then the New York Giants Week 16. So he's got a very good, favorable schedule. 4 easy ball games where you could run all over those teams and have huge days. And like I said, it's just up to Harbaugh and that Raven team to give this guy the keys to the backfield, and he deserves it. We saw him in Week 11 with a huge ball game, and no one could stop him on that team. So J.K. Dobbins, I hope he's all right, and I hope he plays the rest of the way and starts, because this guy's a top 20 talent at running back the rest of the way. Number 19, Raheem Mostert. It was nice to see him come back in Week 12 and have a good ball game versus the Rams with a touchdown. The main issue for him, another guy, it's all about his health. And if he could stay healthy, is Mostert. And in Week 13, he's got Buffalo. Week 14, Washington. Week 15 at Dallas. And Week 16, Arizona. So right now, Raheem Mostert, he's going to be the starter there. I know Jeffrey Wilson Jr. and him, it was almost a 60-40 split. But Mostert, he's the most talented back. He's a back that it could explode and break one to the house anywhere, anytime. It's just health about him. So if he could stay healthy, I'm projecting him here at number 19 for the rest of the season. Number 20 is Kendrick Drake of the Arizona Cardinals. It's been nice to see Drake have a few good ball games now. The last few weeks is Drake's finding the end zone, scoring touchdowns, and we'll see what he could do now in the next few weeks is Drake. Week 13, he's got the Rams. 14 at the Giants. Week 15, Philly and San Francisco. Week 16, so Kendrick Drake, like I said, since he came back from that ankle injury, he's been playing well, and we'll see what he can do again here versus the Rams in Week 13 and on for the rest of the way. Number 21, Wayne Gallman of the New York Giants. This is a guy, he should keep his starter's job. And this guy, he's been getting double-digit fantasy points since Devonta Freeman went down versus the Eagles in Week 8. And Gallman, like I said, he's finding the end zone. He's getting anywhere from 70 to 80 total yards total. And now the Giants, they're going to lean more on him, I believe, with Daniel Jones out a few weeks with that hamstring injury. So Gallman, in Week 13, he's at Seattle. Week 14, Arizona. 15, Cleveland. And 16, Baltimore. So he's got a few tough matchups and a few favorable matchups. But this guy, as long as he's getting the workload, he's going to have a decent rest of the way. And he's a guy you could use as your number 2 running back or your flex position running back. So I got Gallman at 21. Number 22, Kareem Hunt of the Cleveland Browns. He's still getting a good workload. He's in a good run-first offense. And like I said, he's better than some of the starters in this league. So if Kareem Hunt was on another team, he'd be a top 10, 15 running back the rest of the way in each and every week. But anyway, he's got Tennessee in Tennessee Week 13, then Baltimore Week 14 at the Giants Week 15, and Week 16 at the Jets. So very good matchups, 3 out of the 4 for Kareem Hunt and the Browns. And Hunt, if he gets more carries and more catches out of the backfield, he could even be better than a top 20 running back the rest of the way. But I got him here at 22. Number 23, Ronald Jones of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This guy, he's so inconsistent. And the snaps and the carries between him and Fournette, you just don't know who's going to be the guy each and every week. But Jones, I think he's the better running back. Fournette, he looks slow, and he really don't have explosiveness or breaking tackles. And Jones, he looked good versus the Chiefs in yesterday's ball game, breaking tackles, a nice wheel route where he jumped the defender, stayed in bounds for a touchdown. But anyway, Jones, I got him 23 here. I still can't rely on him. He's like a flex option to maybe borderline number 2, and he's off in Week 13, so Week 14 Minnesota, Week 15 at Atlanta, and Week 16 at Detroit for Ronald Jones and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So number 24, David Montgomery of the Chicago Bears. He finally went over 100 yards versus the Green Bay Packers on 11 carries, 103 yards. He had a big 56-yard run, though, that made up most of his night. But Montgomery, the workload's going to be there. They don't have anyone else, really, except Cordell Patterson. He's the backup pretty much in Chicago, but he's more of a wide receiver. So the workload's there. The offense looked a little better with Mitch Trubisky behind center as well. So he's got Detroit in Week 13, Houston in Week 14, Minnesota Week 15, at Jacksonville Week 16 for David Montgomery. So he's got a mediocre schedule. He's right here, a number 2 running back to flex. He's just on the verge here, and he's a guy starting and getting carries, and he's going to get you anywhere from 11 to 15 points each and every week in PPR leagues. So that's a guy that I'm all right with putting at number 24. Number 25, Myles Gaskin of the Miami Dolphins. We'll see if Gaskin could come back and be healthy now with the last 4 games left here in the fantasy season. He's got Cincinnati in Week 13, 14 Kansas City, Week 15 New England, and Week 16 at Vegas. So Myles Gaskin, he's got a pretty good schedule. He's a dual threat back out of the backfield. There's no one in Miami, to me, that really threatens this guy. Salvin Ahmed, he looked decent, but he lost his opportunity now with his shoulder injury, and he's a guy they're probably not going to play. And Matt Breida and DeAndre Washington, they didn't do much in Week 12 with Gaskin and Ahmed out. So Gaskin, I think he's going to come back here in Week 13 and take the reins as the full-time running back over there in Miami like he was before he got injured. Number 26, Nyheim Hines of the Indianapolis Colts. Hines, he's been getting more carries, and he's obviously the third down and passing downs back left in that backfield in Indy. Jordan Wilkins, he's no threat. He didn't do nothing yesterday with Jonathan Taylor out. And Jonathan Taylor, talk about inconsistency. He was another guy who's been inconsistent the whole season, pretty much as Taylor. So Hines, he's the only running back I trust there in Indy. He's a guy Rivers likes throwing to on screens, and they even line him up as a receiver as well. So Hines, he's been solid now the last 3 or 4 weeks in fantasy, and I think he's going to have a decent flex option to number 2 running back the rest of the way. He's got Houston in Week 13. Then he goes to Vegas Week 14. Houston again in Week 15. And Pitt in Week 16. So pretty decent matchups for Nyheim Hines and the Colts. And there's ball games there where they easily could be trailing and where he's going to catch a lot of passes out of the backfield. So I like Hines at 26. Number 27, David Johnson of the Houston Texans. His IR stint should be up now, and he should be ready to go in Week 13 after having bad concussion symptoms now for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And Johnson, he was putting up decent number 2 running back numbers, anywhere from 10 to 15 points a week. And now he's got Indy in Week 13, then goes to Chicago Week 14, at Indy Week 15, and Cincinnati Week 16. So pretty good matchups, good schedule, like I said. Deshaun Watson and the offense is rolling, but they are definitely missing that running back in the backfield who could get that short yardage carry and those gains. And David Johnson, I still think he's better than Duke Johnson. CJ Prosise, we saw him get worked in that ball game a little versus Detroit, but he's not going to be a threat. Duke Johnson, like I said, he'll be some passing downs and some third downs, but I think David Johnson, he's going to come back and get most of the carries here for Houston. So he's number 27. Number 28, Damien Harris of the New England Patriots. I know this guy, it's got to be with him a lot about game script and stuff, because he don't catch any passes out of the backfield. But with Rex Burkhead out for the season, that opens it up for just Harris and pretty much James White getting the work. Sony Michel, I don't see him really coming in. And Harris, he's been getting 15, 20 carries a game like I said, he's not going to catch it out of the backfield, but he's going to get the short yardage and goal line carries, and he's got pretty good matchups coming up. He's got the Chargers in Week 13, at the Rams Week 14, at Miami Week 15, and then Buffalo Week 16 for Damien Harris. So those are games that are going to be close, where they're going to rely on the run, and he's going to get some goal line carries, I think, too. So I think he's a safe play at 28 ranked here, and as a number 2 to flex running back. Number 29, Cam Akers of the Los Angeles Rams. I think this guy starting next week, he's going to take over in the backfield here for the Rams, and he's got a pretty good schedule at Arizona Week 13, New England Week 14, the Jets Week 15, and then at Seattle Week 16. Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown, they're just not getting the job done. I still think they'll get carries, but I think Cam Akers, he's going to be the number 1 guy over there in Los Angeles, and I think the time is now to let him loose, because in that ball game versus Frisco, they had no life, and Akers, he led the comeback in that game in Week 12, even though they fell short, to a game-winning field goal. But I just like Akers. He's a good rookie. He's got explosiveness. He could catch the ball out of the backfield too. So I think Akers, ranking him here at 29 and being safe about it, ain't a bad play. And number 30 is Gio Bernard of the Cincinnati Bengals. Bernard, he's been the starter the last few weeks now, with Joe Mixon out with the foot injury, and we don't know if Mixon's coming back at all this season. It's another lost season for Cincinnati without their star quarterback in Burrow and without Joe Mixon. So I think Bernard, he's going to play the majority of these games. Mixon's still on IR another week or two. So Bernard's got Miami, then Week 14, Dallas, Pittsburgh Week 15, and Houston to close it out in Houston Week 16. So he's got a pretty tough schedule. Couple easy games in there as well, but I don't know what we'll get out of Bernard, but I think he's still going to be a top 30 option because he starts. So that's the rest of the season rankings. Top 30 running back edition.